Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the two-part JFCS Facebook Live series on building resilience. My name is Carly Bruski, and I'm the director of the Holocaust Survivor Support Program here at JFCS, and I will be moderating tonight. Tonight, we have a panel of JFCS experts from across the agency who will be telling us broadly about resilience in the populations they work with, examples of how folks are managing stress right now and building resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic, and give us some tools and tips on how to keep building that resilience when faced with adversity. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have Michael Byrne, mobile therapist for older adults, Denise Crosby, program manager for ELECT and parenting programs, Galia Godel, program manager, LGBTQ initiative, and Lisa Ney, director of services and programs for people living with disabilities. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I would like to kick things off with you, Galia. Could you please define for us what resilience is?
Yeah, thank you so much. Resilience at its core is the ability to bounce back from adversity. The concept that even if you face trauma or difficult experiences or just tough things coming up in your life, that you can come back to the place where you began or even come back stronger without letting it completely take your feet out from under you and making things very difficult for you.
Thank you. That is a perfect way to start our discussion. I appreciate that. Denise, I'm going to start with you, and this question is for all of our panelists. Our first question is, what does resilience look like in the population or community in which you work, where people have a variety of different life and trauma experiences?
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this very, very important topic. I'm currently overseeing parenting programs here at JFCS. And as it relates to parenting, what resiliency looks like for parents, for adults, of course, is a sense of self, a really strong sense of self, which marks their understanding of their ability, their capacity to adapt, to problem solve. Also, what resiliency looks like in parenting is the ability to connect. Understanding that we don't know everything, we're not supposed to, and utilizing the supports that are around us via our families, via our communities, via our religious institutes, using those entities to stay connected to as a source of support.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise. Lisa, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. So when we're looking at people, I'm Lisa Ney. I'm the Director of Services and Programs for People with Disabilities. So thank you again also for this opportunity. When looking at people with disabilities, that can have such a major impact on people's lives. It can really shape or reshape the way in which a person looks at themselves, the way that they relate to others, and what role they take in society. So when looking at resilience, people with disabilities have a great deal of challenges in their life to overcome. They have a lot of attitudinal barriers to cope with, as well as accessing public health information, healthcare, support services. And many of the folks that I work with have really had to deal with a lot of trauma in their lives in terms of being exploited or being bullied, being taken advantage of, and not, having to advocate for themselves and learn that skill. So they really have a lot of challenges that they need to cope with. And that can create a lot of anxiety, frustration, depression. And when looking at somebody who's learned a lot of the skills needed to be able to be resilient, and those protective factors, as we call them, they've been able to develop positive connections with other people. They've been able to regulate their emotions, dealing with those frustrations and anger, taking care of themselves with proper hygiene, sleep, learning socialization skills, which is so critical for people with disabilities, and being able to create relationships with other people, knowing that they can have support so they can be impacted by others and accept help, which is also very important.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Galia, can I hop to you?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm Galia Godel, the program manager of the LGBTQ initiative. And when I'm talking about resilience in teens and adults who identify under the umbrella of LGBTQ, resilience often looks like a comfort with their identity, a willingness to explore both their own identity and the options that are available to them. It looks like reduced suicide rates, and it especially looks like community connections. Social stigma and reduced health outcomes are incredibly common within the LGBTQ community. And so when I say that I want to see resilience within that community, I see people that are healthy, that are able to make connections with other people, and that are able to feel comfortable in their own skin and with their own sexuality or gender and identity.
Great. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Michael.
Hey, I'm Michael Byrne. I'm a mobile therapist for older adults at Jewish Family and Children's Services. Resilience in older adults is really about optimism, being able to cope. There's resilience that's financial resilience, there is physical resilience, and what we're really talking about tonight is emotional resilience. And a lot of times later in life, we get hit by whammies. We lose a spouse, we lose our friends, we get a catastrophic illness. So those things, being able to be resilient through those moments in our life as we're older and possibly isolated, we're looking at like a salutogenesis, which is a sense of coherence. It has three parts. It's being able to comprehend that this has happened, manage your feelings around the event, and lastly, also you can trying to find meaning in what has happened. Those things can all form the resilience around those more traumatic events as for older adults.
Got it. Thank you, Michael. And before I move on to the next question, Denise, did you want to add something?
I certainly do. Thank you for that. I neglected to share what parents look like during this pandemic and their way of really exercising their resilience. And so as parents, as adults, there are a couple of obstacles, things that we're juggling in the air normally. You know, we're juggling a career, we're juggling our children's needs, our spouse's needs. So the pandemic has really highlighted all of that. And as it relates to resilience, a parent is needing to strategize and really tap into their resilience in regards to managing their household, managing their workflow, managing their children's school workflow, their social needs. So a resilient parent really looks like that parent that is ability to look at all of that. And as Michael shared, have a really optimistic viewpoint that we're going to all get through this successfully. What it looks like in children during this time frame is just really mimicking what the parents are capable of or showing. Apologize for that. Children are also able to really look at, okay, I may not be able to go out and play with my friends, but you know, they're very familiar with social, the social tools here. So they're utilizing their social media more to gather together, to enjoy each other's company. They may be reaching out more to their grandparents than they had taken advantage of in the past. It's just looking for those little ways of figuring out how we can get through this unprecedented time with joy and support and encouragement.
Thank you, Denise. I'm so glad you brought up those examples, you know, related to COVID. I think it's really important. And I know Lisa and Michael, you both want to add a piece as well. So Lisa, go for it.
Yeah, so during COVID, it's a whole added layer of what that does to a person's resilience. People with disabilities, need that socialization. It's so critical for them. And when they're feeling isolated at home, they don't have current information. Nobody knows when this is going to end. And not knowing when things are going to end creates a lot of anxiety and fear. People can't take control, and it brings up a lot of that past trauma when maybe they didn't have a sense of control over their lives. So a lot of what we've been doing at JFCS is we're having virtual groups to help people to feel connected, to continue to enhance socialization skills and life skills. A lot of our virtual programs, we're really working with people, whether it's creative writing or journaling, to be able to bring up those positive memories from childhood, or think about a positive person in their life, or think about a safe place that once they were, that they could go to that safe place when they need to calm themselves down. We're teaching a lot of mindfulness skills right now, especially in general, but especially right now during COVID. How to breathe, how to take some control, whether it's even something very, very small, such as, okay, today I'm going to just think of one thing that I can do, and that one thing is going to be, cleaning up my kitchen or my bedroom, or taking a walk and getting out in the sunshine. So, we're really trying to work to teach these skills to help people to bring up a lot of the protective factors and the positives in their life, and give them a sense of purpose and connectedness to others. Michael, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. COVID is throwing what I was just talking about, the salutogenesis, on its ear, right? So all of my clients are grasping, trying to make sense of this, and are not able to make sense of this. This has never happened in their lifetime. Trying to be able to understand what's going on right now, and then finding meaning behind it. It's making all of those things really difficult. And even though they know that we all know that we're all going through this, we're all experiencing this at the same time, we all have those feelings, we're not getting together in groups. So we're not coming together and speaking to each other and seeing that it's affecting everybody else just like the way it's affecting me. So I'm not the only person in this boat, though I feel like I am. So it's making that resilience piece really difficult.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that, Michael, because that's also so common in the LGBTQ community right now, where one of the highest indicators of resilience in LGBTQ teens and young adults is being out of the closet at a younger age. And a lot of teens and young adults are only out in school or at work or when they're with their friends. And these are places that they don't have access to right now. And a lot of folks are stuck inside with unaffirming family members, or in locations where they just don't feel supported. And part of the work that is so valuable right now is creating these online spaces where young adults and adults can feel safe, can feel connected to other LGBTQ people, can feel able to be themselves, even if it's just for 2 or 3 hours a week online, in order to really promote their well-being and resilience.
Right, which is also, sorry to jump back in again, but also why, if we do get a break, which I'm praying we get a little bit of a break in between this crisis and the next wave, that I can get my clients online. I can find ways to get them digitally connected so that we can get them connected with others digitally, because so many older adults are not on the web. And even if they are, they can do QVC, but they don't know how to do anything else.
Right.
Well, Michael, that is one of the resilient characteristics that we can really foster in our children. As parents, we can really identify our older family members, our older neighbors, who we know are isolated, and just walk them through how to manipulate social media. Whether it is, I'll give an example, my children were able to do a step-by-step instruction with my mother to teach her how to download an app that would allow us to be able to communicate. And on clockwork, we do it twice a day. And it is something that we all look forward to. It started off with, we need to create a lifeline to my mother. And now that is something that all of us looks forward to, you know, joining in on.
That's amazing, Denise. That's so empowering for the whole family.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Thank you everyone for that input. I think we heard some fantastic ideas and examples around how you're helping your clients build resilience in their day-to-day lives. So I really appreciate everything you're all doing. It sounds really interesting and really impactful. Before I move into the second question, I just want to invite our viewers to post questions in the comment section on Facebook. I'm sure our panelists would love to field your questions. Please post. And in the meantime, our second question, if I can again begin with you, Denise, that would be wonderful. Would you be able to talk about some steps folks can take or tips or tools they can utilize to build resilience? And I know we've gone into this a little bit, but if everybody could kind of expand about what's happening in their communities in terms of tips and tools, I think that would be really helpful.
Surely. As it relates more to children, some of the things that we can do to build a child, I'm sorry, something just popped up on my screen, technology. Excuse me. Something that we can use to build upon our children's resilience, and I would even dare say ourselves in the process, is what is called the 7 C's of resiliency. The one first is competence. And competence is just what I was sharing about of how that shows up in parents. Really feeling the ability or knowing that you have the ability to encounter something new and to end up coming out of with a mastery of that. And while you're stumbling and you're, you know, not doing as well as you would like in the beginning, you're getting used to it. And while you, as parents, we often want to come to our children's rescue. We want everything to be perfect in their lives. And one of the key points in building resilience is really allowing our children to encounter some adversities. With your loving support, constantly being surrounded, it will allow them to flex that muscle. If you want to think about it as building your child's immune system, you know, we give a little bit of the whatever it is so that they can build up the antibodies in their bodies to be able to be immune to it. It's the same thing with adversities. So certainly competence. Confidence goes hand in hand with that. The more opportunities the child is able to succeed in things, and maybe a little things, then that builds up that child's competency. Confidence. The third C is connection, of course, as we spoke about. Really developing the opportunity to expand on who you're connected with, or really utilize those persons that you're connected with. Family members, neighbors, other community members, even schoolmates. Really keeping that purposeful, that your child is building on and having that connectability in new and exciting ways. Character, with all of that, you're certainly developing and building character. When you're able to face an adversity or something that's new and you don't do as well, you're building character to say, okay, that's a little disappointing, but I have the grit to go at it again. Contribution, that is going hand in hand what I've shared before, being really purposeful to utilize this time to perhaps think out of the box on how they can help someone else. as I shared about, older adults in their lives, helping them with the social media, or any other kinds of, again, out of the box thinking that you can come up with that will be helpful to others, even in your household. You may not have a child that may have been that open to doing chores, that, that's something that you can help promote them to say, like, we really need to all come together as a family to have this household run as smoothly as possible. Coping is another C for resilience, really being able to identify that we have the ability to cope. We may not like how things are right now, but we have the ability to cope. How do we do that? We find purposeful times to just let our hair down and play. We have times where we can freely talk about our feelings, and parents being able to validate those feelings, not dismiss them, and allow them to sometimes have the emotions that comes with those feelings in a really safe place. Lastly, it's control. And so with all of that, with control, is that self-regulating ability that we can build in our children that will be useful in really whatever they face in life. Really being able to understand that I can identify what my emotions are, helping young children really begin to identify, oh, do you feel mad or are you sad? And then helping that child really be able to put a name on the feeling that they're experiencing, and then help them to understand how they can regulate it, not dismiss it again, but how they can keep control over it while they're working through whatever they're encountering. So those are the 7 C's for resiliency that will certainly help and aid parents in building resiliency in their children.
Thank you, Denise. That was awesome. And I have to say, I really loved your immune system analogy. If you're okay with it, I might have to use that moving forward. I really like it.
It's yours.
Lisa.
Okay, that was great, Denise. Thank you. First, I just want to mention a little about protective factors. I've mentioned it a couple of times, just so people know what I'm talking about. They're the skills and strengths and resources that people need that help them deal more effectively with stressful events in their lives. It could be either personal characteristic traits, sometimes environmental, things that help us, supports that help us from outside. So for managing a disability, people often need to learn new skills and expand the current repertoire they have or refine their current ones. So I just want to mention something about resilience. It involves behaviors, thoughts, actions that anyone can learn and develop. Resilience is really like a muscle. It can be trained, it can be strengthened, it can be refined, and it's something that we can learn. So we work a lot with folks with disabilities around building their resilience by learning different skills, learning how to change thoughts, how to take actions that are making healthy choices for themselves. So one of the things that I wanted to mention about kind of tips in terms of how we help people with resilience is really helping them to find connections, as I mentioned before. That is just so critical. And finding connections that are healthy relationships, connecting with people who are empathic, who are understanding, people who can provide support, who can understand what you're going through. Even right now during the pandemic, understanding that you may not be able to be together with other people, but you're able to still know that you may have somebody out there that's on your side, that's pushing for you, that's rooting for you, that you can reach out to when you really need them. Joining the groups that we have, joining any group, an interest group, or a group for learning different skills is always so important, and being together in a group setting. A lot of people say that people can get a job, but maintaining the job, a lot of it is really socialization. So that is a key thing that we're constantly trying to reinforce with our folks, with people with disabilities, and help them with those skills. Another one that I mentioned before is fostering wellness, taking care of yourself, mindfulness skills, learning breathing, meditation, focusing on positives, and especially gratitude is really important to be able to feel grateful for things that we have in our lives. Another thing we work a lot with is finding purpose. when we're not in COVID, we have a teaching kitchen in our Bradsky Enrichment Center, and we have an art studio, and we do a lot of work about helping the community, a lot of social action, volunteering. We bake challah and we bake meals, and even right now during COVID, we're making things and giving it out to people in the community and making sure that people have meals. So it's really important to find that purpose. When you feel you have purpose, a lot of folks with disabilities can then feel like, I am a contributing member of society. I have a voice, I have a purpose, and I can really help to make this world a better place. That is also very critical. What else? Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes 1 second. And looking for opportunities for self-discovery. Instead of focusing on tasks that seem unachievable, you might ask yourself, what's something that I can do that's very positive that I can accomplish? And embracing healthy thoughts, keeping things in perspective, trying to curb those negative thoughts and remain positive, accept change, and keeping positive outlook for the future. I think it's really important to have that hope and sense that, you know, things will get better and I can improve and continually learn and grow. I'll stop there. I think we have other, Michael and Galia need to talk, and I think we have some questions coming in.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, go for it, Galia. You are up next.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. So something that is so important when talking about LGBTQ individuals is the circumstances in which they find themselves. Are they safe? Are they somewhere that is affirming? And are they somewhere where they can grow and explore their full experience and ability? So while it's very important for all individuals to practice mindfulness and to look at these wonderful 7 C's that Denise is talking about, something that's a really important factor when talking about LGBTQ folks is, are they living somewhere safe and affirming? Are they working in an environment where they can be their authentic self? If they are in school, do their classmates and teachers treat them appropriately and affirmingly? If someone who is LGBTQ is somewhere where they feel stifled, where they do not feel able to be their true self, then they will have a lot of difficulty showing resilience and bouncing back from traumatic or difficult experiences. So one of the best ways to promote resilience in LGBTQ individuals is by promoting their tangible well-being, finding somewhere to live with individuals who support who they are, getting social supports for unaffirming family members, if that is possible, to sort of structure the place where you are living to see if your parents can understand a little bit more of who you are, possibly, to provide supports for employment or academia so that the place where you are working and learning is somewhere where you can be the person who you actually are. And once someone who identifies as LGBTQ lives somewhere affirming, works somewhere affirming, goes to school somewhere affirming, their resilience will naturally grow from that point. So that is one of the most important factors, is just physical and sociological safety.
Thank you, Galia. And Michael.
Yeah, so with older folks, physical health plays a big role in resilience. And that can also play a role, especially now with COVID, in how they're feeling about their own resilience. And it's not easy if you've not been physically active to then all of a sudden become physically active. So finding ways for older folks to do chair yoga or do a little calisthenics while seated, find ways to get their heart pumping to help improve their physical health can go a long way in supporting resilience. But the other piece of this, the mindfulness piece, is so important, because so many times our older adults, and we all do it, we all have that tape going on inside of our head, and that tape is not a very friendly tape. And the tape is playing, you know, our worst hits, and it keeps playing our worst hits. And, you know, we ruminate on our worst hits. And now we're ruminating on COVID, and we're ruminating on what's going to happen to me. And we're losing friends in nursing homes or family members. And so finding ways to stop the tape to interrupt the tape and put some positivity into our brains, and to flip the script on that woulda, shoulda, coulda that's been going on, that has been chipping away at our resilience, and finding ways to be grateful, and finding things to be grateful for, and to realize the blessings that we have, and to start replacing that negative tape with positive affirmations for ourselves can help build up our resilience.
Everything you've all said has been so strengths-based, which I really appreciate. You know, as we work from a trauma-informed perspective, and, you know, sometimes in social work, when we have these assessments of things that tend to be deficit-focused, coming at it from a strengths-based place can be really difficult, but you just gave so many ideas, so many examples, which I really, really appreciate. Thank you. And Deb, I'm not sure, do we have questions?
We do. We actually have an interesting one. And the question is, what is a way to build resilience in clients? Should we remind them of past trauma they have gone through, or avoid bringing up the past?
So for older adults, that is a big resilience booster. I've gotten past something before. This is not the worst thing I've hit. I've hit hard things before, and I've gotten to the other side of them. And so that can be a really big resilience booster. You know, that can be their own way of saying, I got this, I got this.
And if I may, regarding both adults, parents, and children, really helping them and encouraging them to look back and think, not necessarily identifying what that trauma was, but really helping them to identify when there was a difficult time in your life. Can you just tell me about it? How did you get through it? And guide them through identifying what they were able to accomplish, what strength they were able to build upon. Is also, you know, a way of pulling that out of our clients.
And what's so interesting is the other side of that can also be affirming that past trauma occurred, where when I'm talking with clients, sometimes they will say, I don't know why everything is so terrible. I don't know why it's so hard for me. Why can't I just have it easy like this person in my life or that person in my life? And acknowledging past trauma can be so valuable in that situation as well, to say, the reason you're in the place that you are in is because of something tangible that occurred to you. You're not just unlucky. You're not just bad at this. You have faced adversity, and that's affected your life. And that will often give someone the courage and the confidence to recognize that they can get past the place that they are in on their own strength. It's not that they have failed or fallen into where they are.
Very well said, everyone.
You guys are so fantastic. I have another question. Everybody touched on mindfulness in one form of another. Can you briefly, each of you, say your favorite mindfulness tool, or is there some like a quick exercise that you recommend?
So I'll start. One of my absolute favorite tools is something to bring somebody down from a moment of high anxiety or panic. And that is to recognize a tangible sensory experience that you are having right now. So I might ask someone, what are 5 things that you can see in front of you right now? What are 4 textures that you might be able to touch? What are 3 things that you can hear? 1 thing you can smell, 1 thing you can taste, sort of going down a list of absolutely tangible sensory experiences to get someone out of their brain and out of spiraling in that moment and back into the place where they are.
One thing we use a lot with our folks with disabilities, I love that, Galia, and just want to say it's wonderful, and I may also use that, is we use a rating scale. So somebody's feeling very anxious about something, maybe a family conflict that they had that day. Okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, where is that? Is that a 10 for you being like, I just can't deal, that's the highest anxiety I could have, or 1, you know, the lowest? Maybe it's a 5, and having the person rate it. That often helps them to get a different perspective. Like maybe it's a 5 or a 6, and it's not really a 10. okay, if they can identify that and then helping them see that can really help them to overcome that. A 5, okay, and then talking through what are some things that you can do to maybe move that 5 to a 4 or a 3 and slowly maybe move it down a little. That's a tool that we use often.
I love that. I'm going to borrow that right back.
One quick thing I like to do is to start breathing, just start a breathing practice with my client. Breathe in with a count of 10, breathe out at a count of 10, and keep that going for a little while, and then say, okay, now we're going to breathe in with a count of 10 and breathe out in a count of 5, so that when they flip the number, their brain has to completely focus on this moment, on that number, and it takes them from being out here right into the center. And it happens pretty quickly.
Interesting.
Yes. As it relates to children, it's really the beginning of them being self-aware of how their body reacts to different situations. So one technique is having them to ball up their fist and then exercising a breath to release the fingers, and helping them to realize like that breathing in and out often helps lessen that tension that we have in our bodies. Is an exercise that, often we use for children, and then thereby the parents are utilizing that same technique.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. That's great.
Wonderful.
That is going to be the last question. Before we wrap up, I just want to share real quick the contact information for JFCS, so that if anyone is interested in looking at the resources we have available on the website, they can look at that, and they can also call our care navigation line. That's the number right there. And on the COVID response section of our website, we have all different resources, from mindfulness to population specific information, stuff for parents, that sort of thing. So
Perfect. Thank you, Deb. And thank you, Deb, in general, for all of your support tonight and handling the tech piece. Thanks so much. And a big thank you to our panelists, our JFCS experts, for sharing all of your knowledge about building resilience. I know I learned so much. This was really interesting. And I hope that people join us again next week, Monday, July 6th, same time, 7:30, for our part 2 discussion, which will focus on the systemic barriers to building resilience in marginalized populations, and then how we can continue to work to help mitigate those. So we hope to see everyone back next week, and thank you all so much. And I hope everyone has a great night.
thank you, everybody. You're fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.